On April 7th, 2008, the NHL held its 14th ever draft lottery. The order from the previous season remained unchanged, leaving the last place Tampa Bay Lightning with the prize, Steven Stamkos. Stamkos was the immediate focus of the Tampa Bay franchise. The organization was marketing him as the face of the franchise before he was even officially drafted. Stamkos wasn't an immediate success, but in his sophomore season, he put up 51 goals. 2 seasons later, he put up 60. Stamkos went on to become the franchise captain, leading the Lightning to 2 Stanley Cups. And, getting to the latter stages of his career, things seemed all set for Stamkos to retire as maybe the greatest legend in Tampa Bay Lightning history. At 34 years old, Steven Stamkos became an unrestricted free agent. This was off of the back of an 8-year, $68 million deal that had been signed in 2016 when Stamkos was 26. Tampa Bay had been getting the better end of the deal for years. Fans wondered if Stamkos might get a raise on his next deal, in part to make up for being underpaid for years. Maybe he would take a bit of a pay cut to help them contend, like legends of other franchises have. No matter what the case, fans had always expected Stamkos to remain in Tampa Bay. All the drama surrounded his signing in 2016, and ultimately he stayed a member of the Lightning. So there wasn't much reason to believe he was going to leave, until there was. Stamkos' camp in Tampa Bay had had troubles throughout the entire season in terms of negotiating a contract. Stamkos had made headlines at the very beginning of the season discussing this. What the discussion ultimately came down to was a difference of opinion on how valuable of a player 34-year-old Steven Stamkos is or would be. Tampa GM Julien Brisebois expressed that, if he had met Stamkos' demands on a contract, it would have gone against the best interest of the organization. On July 1st, Steven Stamkos officially became a free agent, and on that same day, he was officially announced as a Nashville Predator. Tampa Bay's decade-long captain was gone. There is no way to perfectly replace someone like Stamkos with his on-ice ability and the leadership that he brought to the Lightning. That said, Tampa kind of did replace both those things immediately. Typically, when a team moves on from a leader, top-line talent, and franchise legend, that would signal that that team is rebuilding. But Tampa was doing it for basically the opposite reason, by moving on with the intent to stay competitive. And so, they needed to replace Stamkos' impact to justify him leaving. And on the same day that he left, they brought in Jake Guentzel to fill his spot. Stamkos' top-line spot had been replaced immediately. Likewise, Stamkos' leadership role was replaced almost immediately. 2 months after he left, Victor Hedman was named captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay, or at least their management, had moved on. The franchise's all-time goals and points leader, gone. And while fans weren't happy, all that could be done is to look ahead, to see how things would turn out. Tampa Bay, without Stamkos for the first time in his career, and Nashville, with Stamkos, on the first new team of his career. The Tampa Bay Lightning have started their season pretty similarly to how they've started their past few seasons. They have a pretty mediocre record, but still in a playoff spot surrounded by Atlantic Division teams that tend to start about as mediocre as they do. Nikita Kucherov is top of scoring charts, as he often tends to be, although he's gotten there through more of a focus on scoring the goals himself. Jake Guentzel's scoring at about the same rate that Stamkos had scored at the season prior. He's fitting in just fine on Tampa Bay. Victor Hedman has seen a clear decline in his overall game over the past few years, but he's still the team's #1 defenseman, and he's still doing a pretty good job of being that. The Tampa Bay Lightning are doing fine as they have been for the past few seasons. From an outsider's perspective, it really doesn't seem like much has changed, with or without Stamkos. No question the room has to be different now compared to what it was, but there's been no major controversy or anything like that. the team is fine and is well on track to finish how they've finished the past few seasons, in the playoffs, in a spot outside the top of their division, but still comfortably established as a playoff team. The Nashville Predators, on the other hand, have started the season abysmally. With the Stamkos signing as their headlining move, the Predators were one of the busiest teams in the NHL in the offseason. Their offseason moved their public perception from that of a fringe playoff team to that of a legitimate contender. And yet, it's been an absolute disaster over in Nashville relative to expectations. Stamkos is not solely responsible, obviously, but his production is down a good bit. Him, along with many of the team's new additions, have not been able to find a fit in Nashville just yet. It's still early season, but judging by how GM Barry Trotz feels, the Predators may not have as much time as it seems to get things going again before it's too late. When Stamkos left, Tampa Bay lost possibly the greatest player in their franchise's history. That's not the same thing as losing their best player. Nikita Kucherov had surpassed Stamkos as the Lightning's best player quite some time ago. Braden Point had been the team's true 1C for 3 seasons now. It's harder to compare them, but both of Victor Hedman and Andrei Vasilevsky have probably been more valuable to the Lightning on the ice over the past few seasons. Steven Stamkos is still a star player in the NHL, who will likely bounce back from what's been a pretty poor start. But for Tampa Bay, life without Stamkos isn't too dissimilar from life with him over the past few years. With Tampa Bay having a pretty typical start to their season, while Nashville has an awful one, it looks like the Lightning may have made the right move. As hard as it was to do, Julien Brisebois signed off on moving on from Stamkos, and was able to replace a 34-year-old sniper with a player 4 years younger who seems to be having a similar impact. The Tampa Bay Lightning are not expected to be among the league's serious contenders, even if they did make the right move. With the club on a projected downtrend, maybe fans would have just preferred to see out the remainder of Stamkos' career as a Bolt, regardless of the potential implications keeping him on would have had. Tampa Bay needs to justify the move with some serious success, making a deep playoff push this season. Right now, it just looks like they're on track for the same kind of year as the past few, which have ended in first-round exits. Maybe the impact of a club legend like Stamkos will prove to be something the Lightning missed down the stretch. Maybe Nashville is on the verge of turning things around for the year. Neither club, right now, is exactly where they want to be, and in order to reach their season's goals, all of Tampa, Nashville, and Stamkos himself are going to need to adapt and adjust before it's proven that both sides were wrong to make the moves that they did.